Hey, I'm Toby Kvalevog with Leech Outdoor Adventures, bringing you a little tip or overview to summer fishing here on Leech Lake. You know, as a fishing guide that does up to 100 trips a year on Leech Lake, you have to be versatile and you have to be able to fish, different conditions. Leech Lake is a zebra mussel infested lake that has gone up to 21 feet of water clarity. When we have clouds and overcast and the fish are fishy, meaning they're biting, there is nothing better all summer long than a simple slip bobber presentation, slip sinker, slip cork, weight, short leader to a plain hook or a simple weight. That's a little tungsten weight. I happen to use forward facing sonar. So locating the fish and casting to the fish with the presentation, it's not guessing, it's not a guessing game. Every time we make a cast, this is landing on fish. But when the fish are active in the summer, we're talking 75-degree water temperature and warmer up into the 80s. The fish have a higher metabolism, they want to feed more, but the problem is they can be picky, they can be fussy because of the amount of bait. We're talking bait on Leech Lake that are perch, there are shiner minnows, there are little different kinds of baby minnows, pin minnows, and of course crayfish. Crayfish, rusty crayfish are all over the lake. They're in 4 feet of water, they're in 40 feet of water. They're everywhere, and all the fish we clean on a daily basis are eating crayfish. So what do you catch a fish with that is full and doesn't want to eat? An after dinner mint. And an after dinner mint for a walleye is a leech. So if it's windy conditions, I suggest a jig under a slip cork. Calm conditions, I would switch that out to a plain hook. And an orange hook kind of represents what a crayfish looks like when they're molting. That would be what I would go with on clear, calm conditions versus cloud when I go with black. And black is the same color as leech. It's kind of a finesse little trick. Black jig with a black leech, smaller the better leech, will catch you fish on Leech Lake. You know, when that doesn't work, it's time to not be finesse orientated anymore. On Leech Lake, a lot of times, you cannot catch a fish on a leech. You can't catch them on a linear rig, you can't catch them on a jig and a minnow. You have to fish faster. Walleyes are predators. Walleyes will take advantage of or instinctively attack fish that move fast. And or a crayfish. If you ever see a crayfish in the water, when you get close to it, it scurries really fast. And the best thing to replicate a crayfish is a jig and wrap. You know, jig and wraps have been a big deal for the last 10 years. Perch are very common in Leech Lake. And this natural glow perch color jig and wrap is an exact replica of the forage, the perch in this lake. I like to rig this with fluorocarbon line, again, zebra mussels on Leech Lake. So you have to use a fluorocarbon line. This happens to be an 8-pound test. And this is a braided line. This is 10-pound braided line, and I go with a 10 to 15-foot leader. Again, clear water, zebra mussels, clear, long leader. And this is a presentation that's gonna be much faster. Your jig and wrap presentation is gonna be much faster. You cast it out there and you let it follow the bottom, crayfish are on the bottom, and you're fishing within 2 feet of the bottom, and it's a quick jig, pick up the slack, and you're working it all the way back to the boat. Versus your typical jig and a minnow where you're just finessing it through. No, this is a create a response type of presentation. You're jigging it through the fish. Side imaging, forward-facing sonar is very important in Leech Lake. And when you find the fish, if they don't need a bobber, it's time to get out the artificials. Jig and wraps work great. And what's not used as common, and I've caught a lot of fish this year, is just a plastic. This happens to be a Champ Swimmer, 3.5-inch size with a 1/2-ounce jig head. You can go up to a 3/4 for deeper fish. But this paddle tail works quickly. We're talking 1.5 miles an hour through the fish. Pretty steady reel, some jigging to it. Plastics. Don't give them time to think about it. Pick a bait that's natural, not super bright colors. You're gonna catch walleyes on Leech Lake. Those are the 3 patterns. Bobbers and leeches, bobbers and night crawlers work too. Same presentation, same setup. Bobbers and crawlers work. If it's windy, then the crawler naturally moves. If it's calm, bad idea, the crawler will just sink. Leeches will swim naturally. So bobbers and leeches, bobbers and live bait, plastics and jig wraps. If they don't eat a bobber, put them away, break out the heavy metal and get after it. Toby Kvalevog with Leech Outdoor Adventures. That's how we catch them in midsummer here on Leech Lake.